Hey everyone, this is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Claire Henry. Claire is the CEO of a group in the United Kingdom called the National Council for Palliative Care. This is the hospice care movement. And Claire has been a nurse and in palliative care all of her career and is now working really to bring the conversation about death and dying into the public eye to make it more accepting in society. So welcome, Claire. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, Claire, we've talked in other videos about palliative care, what hospice care is, but I'd like to talk about a group that is part of your organization called Dying Matters and get a better understanding of the practical things that it offers people who want to have this conversation or who are facing a death or end-of-life situation in their own family or with friends. So what is Dying Matters?
Dying Matters is a very broad coalition of all sorts of different people that it was really set up to get people to talk about death, dying and bereavement. Right. It came out of the National End of Life Care Strategy for England back in 2008. And it was really saying that as a society, we know we don't talk about death and dying. Sure. We've shut it away. We've medicalised it. But actually it's a normal part of life. So our membership currently is around 32,000, comprising of individuals such as you and me, to organisations which are both health, social care, sort of commercial companies, funeral directors, a whole array of different people that are involved in, that have an interest in talking about death, dying and bereavement.
And so what do they actually do? What does the organization do in practical terms? What services does it offer?
Okay, in practical terms, we've got Dying Matters website, which really gives really practical information around what to expect. One of the key things that we're very conscious of, that it's important to get your house in order because of all the problems, if you don't, that can cause, that when you die can actually cause your loved ones some real challenges. Yeah. So the key things that we've been focusing on a number of different areas, but our key asks specifically are around people making a will. We know that in this country, only about 32% of people have made a will, which is, really low when you think about the problems that can cause.
Yes.
Planning your funeral, putting down your funeral wishes, what you want. And we know that a lot of people have had, sort of thought about what their music want, all different things, which is actually, people have told me that it's been quite fun to do, whether that can be fun. I mean, I've had numerous discussions.
Well, you feel better.
Also about organ donation. Have you thought about being an organ donor? Then also, what's important to you? What are your wishes and preferences? Mm-hmm. And do you know about your loved one? What your loved one wants? The other area specifically for this year is very much thinking around finances. So have you got your finances sorted out? So those are some of the key asks. But the other things that we've done, we've led campaigns around supporting people who are bereaved. So we've got some really great information around what to say for being there. We regularly do surveys. We are asked on numerous occasions to do events. We have our members do all sorts of different things to get people talking about death, dying, bereavement. We have a week each year, which this year is May the 9th to the 14th, which really, and the theme is the big conversation. So have the conversation, take action, write things down, whether you want to write them down physically, if you want to use digital profile, lots of different things, and then get on with living. We also produced huge amounts of different resources to get people different ways to talk. So from boards in the high street, like what I want to do before I die, to bucket lists, to people have cake competitions, to DVDs of, some of them are very hard hitting. Some of them use humor. So it's lots of different ways to try and get the public talking about death and dying, meaning you and me, because we always have this separation between public and professionals. I always think we're all the public. So it's really trying, and it's also then means that when people are diagnosed, or if for some reason there is a sudden death, you know what that person wants. You've got everything in order, which makes life, when you're very vulnerable and having a really difficult experience, that you know that you're doing what your loved one
Yeah.
would have wanted.
And it's kind of normalizing a situation that can be very difficult if you're in the middle of it. I mean, I know I used to do a workshop on perspectives on death where we would talk about all the things you're talking about, but when people were not emotionally involved, you know, because when you're, I mean, now it's easy for you and I to say, oh, I think I'll do what Diana Lumley said and just put me in a cardboard box with flowers and, you know, or the bio urns are very interesting. People in our community love the idea of having your ashes put into a bio urn that turns into a tree and plant yourself, you know, and become a tree. I mean, it's easy to talk about that when you're not, you know, facing a terminal illness. But having said that, Claire, we are all facing terminal illnesses. I mean, the world is so fragile. I mean, what could happen is like any minute.
Absolutely. And you know, it's one of the certainties that's going to happen. So I think it is, you know, I always say to people, it is like a you know, an insurance policy. Write it down and you can go back and change it. But it's just so important to have that. And, you know, we've got loads of different resources, information, also about talking to children. I mean, you know, all of those types of things. So we've got lots of really great resources that we've worked in partnership with all sorts of great people. I've never ceased to be amazed at how different people can be so creative about talking about death and dying in a really sensitive way. I mean, I don't know about if some of your members have been involved in death cafes, which obviously started over in the States. And again, that's another, I mean, it translates very well over here because, as I said earlier, us Brits love to talk over tea and cake. So it's a really great way of doing that. And you know, sometimes, but it's very careful. We have to be careful with the language, and it's lots of different ways. And and I think the key thing that I'd want to get across is with Die Matters, we're not forcing people to have those conversations if they don't want to. It's really individual, and I think it's what's right for different people. But I know that a lot of people say, I should have had this conversation earlier. Why didn't I? It's helped us. It's reassured us. So all of those things are so critical to have it. And as I said, I mean, I have loads of discussions on, and people find that so you know, they'll sort of say, I really need to go away and do something. Or I've heard stories like, yes, our children came to grandma's funeral, and we've got, and one person said actually they've got part of grandma's ashes under the sink because they don't know quite where she wants to be, but she's with them in the house and she enjoyed being in the kitchen. So that was
so cool.
You know, and that was, you know, some people might think, well, that's a bit strange, but it was right for that family, and they were sharing this in a train carriage so everybody could hear.
You know, it's interesting. We have this conversation on 60 and Me occasionally about death and dying and whether there's a fear. And most women say that they're not afraid of actually the death piece. I mean, that is inevitable. And I think you appreciate your life if you've, you know, had a great life and you've got children or family and friends. But you actually are afraid of the dying process. And I remember, I think it was Cicely Saunders, who was one of the founders of the hospice movement, said something like, as you, the way that you die is remembered by the people who live on. So, you know, if you can come to grips with your own death and, you know, like you say, plan ahead so people don't have to worry about what music, how you want to be buried and what's important at your funeral. It makes it more of a, well, not that it can be a pleasant experience, but it makes it more of a celebration. And they remember that. That's how you died. You know, you died in joy with them, hopefully.
Yeah, and we need to work together to do the best we can because, you know, we only get one chance to get it right. And it's really important that, you know, we work together to make that happen. And any experience isn't, it's how we support the relatives, the family to cope with it.
It's a big job, though. Now, you have 30,000 members in this organization, Dying Matters. Do they talk to each other? Like, is there a resource pool? Like, if you are a funeral director and you know that somebody has somebody with cancer, and is there some way that they can connect the resources and skills?
I mean, we try and encourage our members. I mean, we had recently had a launch event for our theme, The Big Conversation. So we do try and encourage people. And I think we can always do more. I mean, social media plays a huge part in that. Absolutely massive. And, you know, we're really active on Twitter, obviously on Facebook. other media channels. So Twitter is a really good way of connecting people and looking at what's happening across the world, because we can learn so much from each other and get people, talking about it. So we do try and connect. We can always do more. We can, I don't think anything, we're not saying we've got it exactly right. So we need to expand, and the more we can expand, the better, to look at how we can connect people so people do have that conversation and they know what to expect. They know how much a funeral is, what they can ask for, that you don't have to have a set package. You can have what you want. And, all of those things, because I think people don't know how much things cost, what they should expect, what they shouldn't expect, what they can have.
And you can't make those decisions when you're emotionally distraught. I mean, it has to happen when you've got a calm, you can see the choices. Otherwise, you just make wrong decisions that aren't right. But it's really funny. We talk about social media. I totally agree with you that is an amazing place for support. And I mean, I've got several friends on my Facebook group who have cancer, who are dealing with it, and they get nothing but love and support every day.
Yes.
And there was a man, I just saw it yesterday on LinkedIn, and he's somebody in my, thousands of circle, how it is with LinkedIn. But he had a little post and it just said, I lost my daughter today and she is now in heaven, something like that. Simple little message. He got over like 100,000 like messages, like little, and that must make, and it does make you feel like you're not alone, that it's supportive.
I think social media is critical, because I know people that are going through sort of caring for a loved one have said, you're awake in the middle of the night. So somebody is awake in the world that will actually respond to you if you send a message out. So you are never alone. So I don't think we should ever underestimate the power of social media. I mean, it does such a lot of good. I know it can be challenging at times, but it does so much good for people.
Well, look, if the goal of Dying Matters is to get the conversation going, I see your sign behind you, the big conversation on the poster behind you. If that's the goal, you're doing a great job. I mean, honestly, when I think about when my mom died, how we just didn't talk about it, everybody was just internally struggling, and I think it's just a different world now. And thanks to people like you and your team.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a great team that we couldn't do it without a whole team approach.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. And I actually should say that you have got this huge honor a couple of years ago that you got the MBE presented to you by the Queen of England. It was, for people who don't know, that's the member of the British Empire, and just acknowledging the work you're doing with getting this conversation about death in the public, and very proud.
I was very proud on behalf of the sort of whole sector around palliative and end-of-life care. It was a great recognition for the work that we all do.
It's tough work, and I'm very grateful that you came on today to talk to us. Thank you again.
Thank you.